Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Coming up in the next hour. Hamas hands over bodies of 4 Israeli captives in exchange of hundreds of prisoners, marking the final swap of the first phase of Gaza Truce, says ready to start talks on the second phase. On his trip to Washington, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says there is no more important relationship for his country than with the United States. Zelensky also due at the White House to sign the important minerals deal on Friday. US President Donald Trump set to impose 25% tariffs on imports from European Union. EU vows firm and immediate response. Bangladeshi students activists who ousted the then Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina set to announce a new political party on Friday. And European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen, along with other commissioners, to arrive in India today, focus on trade and security in bilateral talks. Up first, news from West Asia. Hamas handed over the bodies of 4 Israeli hostages to the Red Cross in Gaza on early Thursday, marking the final exchange under the Gaza Truce. Hamas had previously identified the bodies as those of Sachi Idan, Ishtaq Elgarat, Ohad Yahalomi and Shlomo Mantzur, all of whom were abducted during the October 7, 2023 attack. The handover did not include a Hamas ceremony. The 4 hostages previously identified by Hamas as Sachi Dan, Ishtaq Elgarat, Ohad Yahalomi and Shlomo Mantzur were abducted during Hamas' October 7th attack last year. The bodies were now undergoing initial identification at the Forensic Center in Tel Aviv. The ceasefire, which came into effect on 19th of January, has largely held despite numerous setbacks. But its first phase is due to end this week, and the fate of its next phase, which aims to end the conflict, remains unclear. Earlier on Thursday, Hamas indicated that it was ready to start talks on the second phase, adding that the only way the remaining hostages would be freed is through commitment to the ceasefire. Meanwhile, buses carrying released Palestinian prisoners from Israeli prisons arrived in Gaza's Khan Yunis on early Thursday, days after Israel had originally refused to release them. Israel refused to release the prisoners on Saturday after Hamas handed over 6 hostages in a staged ceremony. This handover was a significant step as it completed the first phase of the ceasefire agreement, which involved the release of 33 hostages in exchange for nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and the withdrawal of Israeli troops from some positions in Gaza, as well as an influx of aid. Lebanon's new government has won a confidence vote in parliament following a speech by Prime Minister Nawaz Salam promising to push for economic reforms and to start negotiations with the International Monetary Fund. Salam's government won the backing of 95 lawmakers in the 128-seat chamber. The new government's policy statement did not include language used in previous years that was seen as legitimizing a role for Hezbollah in defending Lebanon. Lebanon formed a new government on February 8th, following direct US intervention in the process and in a step to access reconstruction funds following the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. On to the US now. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer will meet US President Donald Trump on Thursday. Ahead of the meeting, Starmer stressed that there is no more important relationship for the United Kingdom than the one with Washington. He said this at a meeting with business leaders at the residence of the British ambassador to the US.
We are reforming permitting, getting things built, reducing barriers to investment and growth, and we're open for business, open for investment, and we're determined to help US innovators thrive in the United Kingdom. So my message is we want to work with you, we want to welcome you to Britain, we want a new partnership, because our history shows that when we work together, great things happen.
Meanwhile, on the issue of peace in Ukraine, Starmer has urged the United States to provide a security backstop to any future European peacekeepers in Ukraine, saying only this would offer Kiev a lasting peace rather than a temporary ceasefire. Starmer will be hosting Zelensky, Macron and other European leaders in Britain on Sunday as momentum grows, with Britain and France proposing peacekeepers. The shape of a possible deal has begun to emerge, but now it will be up to Moscow and Washington to seal it. US President Donald Trump said that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will be visiting Washington on Friday to sign an agreement on rare earth minerals and other topics and to discuss future aid with the United States.
President Zelensky is going to be coming on Friday. That's now confirmed, and we're going to be signing an agreement, which will be a very big agreement. And I want to thank Howard and Scott for the job you guys did in putting it together. Really did an amazing job. And that'll be on rare earth and other things.
Though Trump said that the US will not be making security guarantees for Ukraine, but that Europe would. He also added that Russia would also have to make some concessions for a peaceful deal with Ukraine.
Well, I'm not going to make security guarantees beyond very much. We're going to have Europe do that because it's in, we're talking about Europe as their next door neighbor. Yeah, he will. He's going to have to. And I believe that because we got elected, that war will come to an end.
While Zelensky said on Wednesday that the revenues from the resources deal would be deposited in a fund co-owned by Ukraine and the United States, and that Kiev would not be a debtor over aid provided under the Biden administration.
Guarantees of peace and security are the key to preventing Russia from destroying the lives of other nations.
Staying with the United States, President Trump's administration on Wednesday ordered federal agencies to undertake more large-scale layoffs of workers. This comes just after Trump's first cabinet meeting, where Department of Government Efficiency Chief Elon Musk pledged deeper spending cuts. A new memo ordered agencies to submit plans by 13th of March for staff reductions, adding to the job cuts and program reductions already in place. However, it did not specify how many positions would be affected. The memo represents a major escalation in Trump and Musk's campaign to slash the size of the US government. Thus far, the layoffs have focused on probationary workers who have less tenure in their current roles and enjoy fewer job protections. The next round would target the vastly bigger pool of veteran civil servants. Further, Donald Trump announced a forthcoming 25% tariff on imports from the European Union. In response, the European Commission vowed to counteract these unfair trade barriers, emphasizing its commitment to protecting European businesses, workers and consumers. We have a report.
On Wednesday, US President Donald Trump announced that his administration would soon implement a 25% tariff on imports from the European Union. In response, the European Commission vowed to take immediate action against unfair trade barriers and tariffs that challenge legitimate policies.
We have made a decision. We'll be announcing it very soon, and it'll be 25%. Generally speaking, and that'll be on cars and all of the things. And European Union is a different case than Canada, different kind of case. They've really taken advantage of us in a different way.
The EU reaffirmed its commitment to protecting European businesses, workers and consumers from unjustified tariffs. The EU has a 10% tariff on passenger cars, 4 times the rate of the US passenger car tariff of 2.5%. US officials have also raised concerns about European value-added taxes, which start at 17.5%. Meanwhile, Trump raised hopes for another month-long pause on steep new tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada, saying they could take effect on April 2nd. However, the White House confirmed that the March 4th deadline for 25% tariffs remains in place, subject to Trump's review of border security measures and efforts to curb migration and fentanyl trafficking. Canadian Innovation Minister Francois Philippe Champagne stated that Canada will wait for Trump's signed executive orders before responding, while Mexico's economy minister declined to comment but announced that Minister Marcelo Ebrard will meet U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer on Thursday. Kajal's report for DD India.
Europe is scrambling to amp up its defense industry after comments from US President Donald Trump all but confirmed a US withdrawal from European security. Ukraine may also not get the security guarantees that they were hoping for. That should come from Europe, the US president has said. For more on this fracturing transatlantic relationship, let's speak to DW correspondent Varda Imran joining us from Berlin now. Varda, what can you tell us?
Thanks for having me. Yes, let's start with the comments of US President Donald Trump, where he said that Europe will have to take a lead in providing security guarantees for Ukraine. This comment, although not surprising at all, did lead to a flurry in Europe as the region realized they will have to massively, and to be honest, quite quickly ramp up their efforts to expand defense production. For now, as you may already know, the US was the leader in this war against Russia, and the EU could very much rely on this partnership, and so was taking their time to develop an internal defense security strategy. Even the French president's recent visit to the US failed to convince Trump. The UK Prime Minister is next and is already in Washington to reiterate his role in this.
Europe's defense industry would have to invest a lot of time and billions to amp up this industry. What's the way forward, Varda?
Well, the way forward is for European countries to start reorganizing their kitties to make way for increased defense spending. The UK has already announced a cut in foreign aid budget to make way for military funding. Development organizations are very unhappy. Germany is looking to take a fast track and finance and set up a defense fund, which would be financed by debt, and this would be to the tune of 200 billion euros. But will this be passed in the current parliament, or will this be put on hold until the new parliament comes in effect? We'll have to see. The issue is that Germany's defense industry was dormant for years before the Ukraine war, and it seems to have exhausted its resources during the war in Kiev. If Europe is too fast in acquiring weapons it doesn't make itself, it may have to buy them from the US, which again leads to money flowing out of Europe. To figure out a comprehensive strategy, there is an emergency leaders meeting slated for next week.
Okay, Varda, there was also an unconfirmed tariff announcement. What impact would that have?
Oh, these tariff threats have become so commonplace in the last month or so since Trump took office. And the latest threat includes a 25% tax on imported goods from the European Union, including cars. I believe his exact words were cars and all other things. So until a directive comes through, the EU doesn't even really know what to expect. But it seems this will be confirmed in early April. The current tariffs on European cars are 2.5%. So this big increase will be a big jump. According to an Oxford economics analysis, Germany has the most to lose from such a tariff announcement. auto exports could fall by as much as 7%. And this would be devastating for an already struggling auto industry. Although it does show some signs of recovery under the new incoming German government. A quarter of Germany's total auto imports go to the US, so the impact would be massive here compared to just 5% of export losses projected for France.
Thank you, Varda. Varda Imran reporting from DW Berlin. Still to come on DD India News Hour. After Taiwan, New Zealand too raises concerns over China's live-fire military drills in the Tasman Sea. NASA is on a mission to uncover the water sources on the moon's surface. And a group of transgender women will lead the closing parade segment at the Rio Carnival.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is set to visit India on February 27th, 28th, accompanied by 21 of her 27 EU commissioners. This high-level delegation aims to enhance the India-EU strategic partnership, focusing on trade, defence, security and discussions on the Ukraine conflict. DD India's Akhilesh Suman reports.
During the high-level European Union delegation visit on February 28th, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President von der Leyen are expected to engage in comprehensive talks covering proposed free trade agreement, FTA, defense and security cooperation and Russia-Ukraine conflict. On the FTA front, while negotiations on market access and tariffs may take center stage, discussions will also focus on expanding the India-EU strategic partnership to new areas like defense technology and energy cooperation. Both sides are expected to explore collaborations in digital technology, artificial intelligence and green energy, including green hydrogen and renewable energy. The talks may also be helpful in achieving India's goal of Viksit Bharat or a developed nation by 2047. Free trade agreement, negotiations on market access, tariffs and standards, strategic partnership expansion, defense technology and energy cooperation, digital and AI collaboration, strengthening technological partnerships, India-EU green transition, renewable energy and climate commitments.
I think on the bilateral aspect, it is the EU-India FTA that has been under discussion, under negotiation for a long time. I remember we started this in 2007 when I used to be in Brussels. I used to be the Deputy Chief of Mission in Brussels. EU is a very significant trading partner. It's a very significant investment partner. And we have to make it a very significant technology partner.
A notable component of the visit is the India-EU Trade and Technology Council, which aims to boost strategic coordination on trade, emerging technologies and digital innovations. The total bilateral trade between India and European Union stands at $135 billion. India's exports to the EU amount to $76 billion, while EU exports to India are valued at $59 billion. EU investments in India total up to $117 billion, with over 6,000 European companies operating in the country. Meanwhile, Indian investments in the EU amount to some $40 billion.
India free trade agreement that has been looming on, dragging on actually for more than a decade now, and so far they couldn't agree on the terms. And I think now the situation is there that that this agreement should be finalized in the interest of both.
This visit marks the first ever meeting of such a big number of EU commissioners in India, highlighting the growing strategic importance of India-EU relationship. One of the most crucial aspects of the discussions is expected to be Russia-Ukraine conflict. The EU may seek India's diplomatic role in peace negotiations and explore India's support in providing security guarantees to Ukraine should a peaceful resolution be reached. This comes amid the ongoing talks between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Putin to end the Russia-Ukraine conflict, which has now completed 3 years. The EU, which is aiming to play an important role, sees India as a potential support given its balanced stance on global conflicts.
Since the time Donald Trump has become the President of the United States of America, every country is trying to consolidate the older relationship so that their interests are not affected negatively. India and EU are also trying in the same way. Akhilesh Suman for DD India in New Delhi.
And DD India's Jessica Taneja joins us from New Delhi on the story now. Jessica, the President of the European Commission's India trip begins with her College of Commissioners. What will be the major areas of interest and discussion during this visit of Ursula von der Leyen? Jessica, are you able to hear me? Seems like we have problems connecting with Jessica at the moment. We'll try and connect with her again. So Ursula von der Leyen is beginning her two-day trip to New Delhi, and this visit comes as part of her engagements in achieving important deliberations on digital technology, artificial intelligence, green energy, including green hydrogen and renewable energy. The bilateral trade in services between India and the EU stood at $53 billion in 2023. The negotiations on market access, tariffs and standards could be also on the agenda. Let's try and connect with Jessica Taneja from New Delhi now on the story. Jessica, the President of the European Commission is travelling with her College of Commissioners to New Delhi. What will be the major areas of interest and discussion this time?
Well, Tanvi, this visit is somehow significant from the perspective of the European Union because a large delegation, as we've shown in our report, and also mentioned, is going to be arriving here in New Delhi shortly, with the European Commission leading that delegation. Ursula von der Leyen will, of course, be in New Delhi and hold those key bilateral meetings that have been lined up for her, and the 21 commissioners of the college that are also going to be present here in the national capital. So lots on the agenda, firstly, but on the significance of this event, because this large delegation has sort of ensured that the part and the kind of deliverables and that are currently associated with India are immense. You saw how the bilateral trade has been on an uptick in India, of course, an important partner, not just in the Indo-Pacific, but also a country with whom the European Union wants to enhance ties and also perhaps create a better momentum for the India-EU FTA. Also, not to forget the India-EU summit, a biannual event, that the last time the Prime Minister was in Brussels, and India will now host in the future, as well as what the European Union the European Commission delegation also seem to have pointed out, to lay the groundwork for the future India-EU summit as and when it happens later in the year. So important outline of work for the European delegation that is travelling to India, Tanvi.
Okay, and what does this visit mean for the ongoing negotiations for a free trade agreement between India and the EU, and of course the India-Middle East-Europe economic corridor?
Well, interesting, yes. This was the question posed to the European officials in a briefing, and they did mention that the IMEC corridor, the India-Middle East-Europe economic corridor, which is central and was announced during India's G20 presidency, will come up for discussions, potentially because of the conflict in West Asia that had halted a certain initiation of the project and certain details of the project. So now it is all, of course, coming together. You must have also seen from the Prime Minister's visit to France just a few weeks ago, there were also discussions on IMEC, since France and the city of Marseille would be an essential port for the IMEC corridor. So, of course, the European Commission will hold talks when it comes to the IMEC. Apart from that, of course, the FTA has been essential. 10th round is what we're given to understand of the India-EU FTA talks, which currently was ongoing and would find more solutions, especially to the issues of CBAM and other free trade and tariff barriers as well, along with certain procurement agreements that the EU side would want to address with India, and all those issues they have particularly faced when it comes to the trade side of it, and also take stock of the Trade and Technology Council, which has been an essential component of the relationship between the two, and not to forget looking at how the areas of space, defense and security also would come up. Not much detail given on the aspect of defense and security that they say would be put out in their joint communication later on when the visit ends on Friday evening.
Okay, thank you very much. Jessica Taneja reporting from New Delhi. Staying in Asia, Taiwan's defense ministry reported a surge in Chinese military activity on Wednesday, but officials said that they did not detect any live fire exercises in a drill zone off the island's southwestern coast. Taiwan's government condemned the move as dangerous, provocative, and a threat to commercial flights and shipping, adding no prior notice was given. China has yet to comment on this. In its daily morning update of Chinese military activities in the prior 24 hours, Taiwan's defense ministry said that it had detected 45 Chinese military aircraft and 14 Navy ships operating around the island on Wednesday. They said that the Chinese move was very similar to its other recent military activity in the region, such as in the South China Sea and that of Australia's coast, during which China's Navy did not give adequate notice about their exercises. New Zealand has also raised concerns over China's recent live-fire military drills in the Tasman Sea on Wednesday as the Foreign Minister Winston Peters addressed the issue during meetings with Chinese leaders. New Zealand emphasized that it had not been given adequate notice about the exercises of its coast. Peters is in Beijing for a 3-day visit after relations between the two countries became strained over the drills. Additionally, Peters expressed concerns that the Cook Islands, an independent nation in free association with New Zealand, had signed a comprehensive strategic partnership and other agreements with China without proper consultation with New Zealand. Both New Zealand and Australian officials reported that China had conducted live fire exercises in international waters between the two countries with minimal notice, which led to flight diversions for commercial airlines.
We mentioned the recent event with respect to the naval exercises from China and the irony of the use of naval weaponry in the Taiwan situation just in the last 24 hours, and talk to them about the lack of notice that you'd expect for a country like ours in a relationship with China to have had.
NASA's Lunar Trailblazer satellite has launched on a mission to uncover water sources on Moon. The launch is part of a U.S. company's second lunar touchdown. The satellite, carried by a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, aims to identify and map water in permanently shadowed craters at the lunar poles. Water is crucial for future lunar missions as it can be processed into oxygen and fuel. Lunar Trailblazer will orbit the Moon at 60 miles altitude, collecting high-resolution images to determine the form and abundance of water. Lunar Trailblazer will begin a 2-year mission to study the distribution of different forms of water on the Moon. The mission could also shed light on the origin of water on Earth. With potentially hundreds of millions of tons of water on the moon, the discovery could be a game changer for space exploration. And very quickly now, let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. A fierce wildfire in northern Japan has devastated over 80 buildings in Ofunato Iwate, reducing many to charred remnants. The blaze has forced nearly 600 residents to evacuate, with military helicopters deployed to combat the flames. As of Thursday, officials reported that the cause of the fire remains unknown. Myanmar's Ministry of Information organized a traditional Hitamani making competition in Naypyidaw to preserve cultural traditions and strengthen team spirit. Myanmar's Union Minister and other officials participated in the event, featuring 6 teams from various departments. The lively contest included drummers, dancers and singers. A group of Brazilian trans women will lead the final section of Paraiso do Tuito's parade at Rio Carnival, narrating the story of Chica Manicongo, a 16th century enslaved trans woman. Led by Bruna Benavides, the performance supports the trans community. The Rio Carnival parade runs from March 2nd to 4th. Still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. India slams Pakistan over its remarks made on Kashmir at the UN, calls it a failed state that thrives on instability. Also on the other side, an expert take on Bangladesh student group's decision to launch a new political party.
What do you make of how India is dealing with the AI landscape right now? It has an AI mission, so it wants to develop AI to the kind of advantages that it can deliver, and also at the same time, it is in the process of working out an AI law.
It's a matter for India it's a sovereign decision for India to determine which approach it takes, whether it takes the regulation-free model or believes that there are risks inherent in AI and that they need to be mitigated and society needs to be protected from those.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Tanvi Taneja. A quick relook of the headlines we are tracking at this hour. Hamas hands over bodies of 4 Israeli captives in exchange of hundreds of prisoners, marking the final swap of the first phase of Gaza Truce, says ready to start talks on the second phase. On his trip to Washington, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says there's no more important relationship for his country than with the United States. Zelensky also due at the White House to sign minerals deal on Friday. US President Donald Trump set to impose 25% tariff on imports from the European Union. EU vows firm and immediate response. India on Thursday strongly criticized Pakistan at the 58th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council, labeling it a failed state that thrives on instability and survives on international handouts. Permanent mission of India to the UN in Geneva, Kshitij Tyagi, said that it was unsurprising to see their leaders continue the spread of falsehoods handed down by their military terrorist complex.
Pakistan's so-called leaders and delegates continuing to dutifully spread falsehoods handed down by its military terrorist complex. Pakistan is even making a mockery of the OIC by abusing it as its mouthpiece, which is fooling nobody. We do not wish to dignify such propaganda, but are constrained to make a few simple points for the record. First, the Union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh were, are, and will always remain an integral and inalienable part of India. Second, the unprecedented political, social, and economic progress in Jammu and Kashmir in the past few years speaks for itself. These successes are a testament to the people's trust in the government's commitment to bring normalcy to a region scarred by decades of Pakistan-sponsored cross-border terrorism.
On to Bangladesh now. The students who were at the forefront of last year's protests that ousted the then Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina are set to launch their political party on Friday. The Anti-Discrimination Student Movement and the Jatiya Nagrik Committee announced that they would launch their political party at Manik Mia Avenue in capital Dhaka on February 28th. Earlier on Tuesday, student leader Nahid Islam has resigned from the Advisory Council of the interim government as the Information and Broadcasting Advisor amid discussions that he would join a new political party. He said that given the current situation in the country, the rise of a new political force is necessary. Nahid is likely to become the convener of this new political party. Further, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres will visit Bangladesh from March 13th to 16th following an invitation from the head of the Bangladesh's interim government, Dr. Muhammad Yunus. With Bangladesh struggling under the weight of Rohingya refugee crisis, Guterres has reaffirmed the UN's commitment to mobilizing international support. In a letter to Professor Yunus on February 25th, he expressed deep concern over the worsening humanitarian situation in Rakhine and its regional impact. Guterres vowed to intensify diplomatic efforts, working with ASEAN and other key stakeholders to push for a political resolution and ensure conditions for the safe, voluntary return of the Rohingyas. The upcoming high-level conference on Rohingya and Myanmar's minorities, he hopes, will reignite the global attention and pave the way for lasting solutions. Now, Pinak Ranjan Chakrabarti, former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh, joins us on the story. Now, welcome, sir, to the program. Could you tell us more about this student uprising, the Students Against Discrimination, and something about Nahid Islam, the political background of him, who is set to launch his new political party in Bangladesh?
The student agitation that basically began against the quota system in the government. I mean, off and on it has happened since 2012. But then it reached a peak in 2018 when the government of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina withdrew the quota system. But those who were benefiting went to the High Court and got the status quo restored. Then by then the students started agitating and there were clashes and many of the students were killed. Then the Supreme Court was asked to intervene and they scrapped the quota system, leaving only about 7% of the quota in government jobs for different categories of people. Now, after that, of course, the agitation stopped for some time, but then again it reconvened because there were others who were interested in using the agitation for the change of regime, which finally happened. Now, the student leaders and all who were participating were basically from Dhaka University and some other universities. And now then they joined the government because they were seen to have meticulously planned, according to Professor Yunus, this whole agitation and therefore had to be rewarded. So they were rewarded with positions in the advisory or the interim government, which was formed because there was chaos after Sheikh Hasina had to leave, forced to leave actually. And so then now they have decided that since they managed to overthrow a government, so they think that they have now the traction or the support to form another party. So they have decided to form a party as far as the news reports go. And Nahid Islam was one of the leaders who was in the government. And he has since resigned because there has been demands by the opposition parties that you can't form a new party by being in the government. So I think they have realized that they can't do that. So they are joining. They have quit the government. At least one of them.
Yes.
I presume some of the others will also quit to join this party.
How much of a
Whichever
political challenge could Nahid Islam's new party, which is yet to be named, would have to the Bangladesh Nationalist Party if free and fair elections are held?
Well, they will get some support definitely, because if they got support for overthrowing Sheikh Hasina, they might get support in an election as well. And but how many seats they will get, etc., is difficult to predict at this stage. And clearly, they see some future for themselves and their party. But it won't be very easy to organize a country-level party on a short basis, because they are thinking of elections by the end of this year, by December. So they don't have much time, really. They have about 10 months left. And to organize the party at the grassroots level, etc., is not a very easy exercise. Moreover, the requirement of funds, etc., for organizing the party and setting up the party structures and machinery, I don't know how they will get their funds. Maybe they'll get donations, or students will contribute, etc. So there are a lot of ifs and buts and question mark about this new party and how it will fare. There are many others who are planning to form new parties. So it'll be it's on the electoral battlefield that it will be decided.
Okay, the chief of the Bangladesh Army, General Wakar-uz-Zaman, has talked about the rapidly worsening law and order situation in Bangladesh. Can we see a situation arising where he could possibly take over the reins of the government?
His last speech, General Wakar-uz-Zaman's last speech was quite strong, and was very strongly worded. We're threatening those who are involved in infighting must stop, because this is not the way to go. And of course, he didn't say that if this does not stop, then the army will step in. But there has been precedence for the army stepping in. In fact, when I was posted as High Commissioner and arrived there, a very similar thing had happened. That the army stepped in and changed the members of the caretaker government. Now, whether they will do that or not is anyone's guess. But if the law and order and all the chaotic stuff that is going on there, because the law and order is really quite bad from what I understand. And if that goes on and there is infighting, he was also hinting that the students are not united, that there is infighting among them and with the BNP and other opposition groups. So he was warning them that if these kind of things do not stop, then perhaps the army will exercise some other options. I think that is what he was trying to warn that. And he also said that, don't tell me later that I didn't warn you. So these are pretty ominous kind of remarks, I think, and which could lead to some kind of an army intervention.
We leave it here. Thank you very much, Pinak Ranjan Chakravarti ji, for sparing your time and shedding analysis on the story. Maha Kumbh, the mega religious gathering held once every 12 years, drew over 660 million devotees to the sacred confluence of the Ganga, Yamuna and Saraswati for a dip in the pursuit of faith and salvation in Prayagraj. On the concluding day, that is, on Maha Shivratri, nearly 20 million devotees took the holy dip, closing the event that witnessed profound spiritual fervour. The festival began with the Posh Purnima Snan on 13th of January and concluded with the Mahashivratri Snan on 26th of February. With meticulous arrangements by the Mela police ensuring security and order, Maha Kumbh 2025 transcended the definition of a religious gathering. It became a profound symbol of social unity and the spiritual strength of Indian society. Further, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has penned a blog post on the Maha Kumbh Mela, describing it as a Mahayagya of unity that reflects India's rich spiritual and cultural heritage. Sharing some quotes on X, Prime Minister Modi wrote, and I quote him, "The Maha Kumbh has concluded, the great ritual of unity has concluded. In Prayagraj at the Maha Kumbh of Unity, the way The faith of 1.4 billion countrymen came together at the same time, connected to this one festival for full 45 days, is overwhelming. People from every class and region of society became one in this Maha Kumbh. This became a grand festival of the eternal memorable scene of One India, Great India, instilling self-confidence in crores of countrymen. To make this grand confluence of unity a success, overwhelmed by the hard work, efforts and resolve of the countrymen, I will visit Sri Somnath, the first among the 12 Jyotirlingas. Offering the flower of resolve in the form of devotion, I will pray for every Indian. I wish that this unbroken stream of unity among the countrymen continues to flow just like this." Unquote. Earlier, India's Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnav took stock of Uttar Pradesh's Prayagraj Junction station. He visited the Integrated Command and Control Centre, which was set up for smooth crowd management through continuous monitoring during the Maha Kumbh 2025. Minister also met the railway employees and other CISF personnel and lauded their contribution towards efficient functioning of the Indian Railways.
महाकुंभ के इस सफल आयोजन के लिए सभी कर्मचारियों को, अधिकारियों को धन्यवाद देने के लिए आया हूँ। आज हमारे संस्कृति के इस बहुत बड़े महापर्व में सबने मेहनत की, सबने अपना अपना योगदान दिया कि दिन रात आपने मेहनत की, लगे रहे और जो प्रधानमंत्री जी ने हमें मार्गदर्शन दिया था, श्रद्धालुओं की श्रद्धा में हम कैसे सहायक बने, कैसे उस सेवा भाव से काम करें, वही सभी ने किया।
New Delhi is hosting for the first time the International Radiobiology Conference from February 27th to March 1st. Experts are discussing the impact of galactic cosmic rays, GCR, on astronauts, which can cause severe health risks, including cancer and cognitive decline. Professor Ajay Kumar Sood, Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India, spoke to DD India on the importance of addressing space radiation challenges.
Joining me is Professor Ajay Sood, the Principal Scientific Advisor to Government of India. Sir, this is International Radiobiology Conference. It's the first time this is happening in the country. People across the globe coming here. What is your take and how you believe that this is expected to be a game changer, not just for the country, but we can have a major outlook for the world also?
See, this is a very important conference as more and more human explorations are on their way. And there is a very important effect of radiation on astronauts. This needs to be studied. And there are, of course, spin-offs of this study for the cancer therapy. So this conference brings together all the experts from abroad and within India on one platform. And this will be a very important pathway for us to know what we should be doing as we go in our space program. And as you know, the private sector participation has also increased in space sector, which means more and more human exploration will happen. And Government of India's support for space sector is phenomenal. And I'm sure conferences like this, which are at the cutting edge of the advanced research, will go a long way.
So this is, you mentioned it's a cutting edge, this is actually a very niche sort of a work. And as India is moving towards the space exploration space, and we see a lot of startups also coming in. Do you believe that those startups and the big who's who of international space agencies can come together and come up with something, path finding, a change maker?
Absolutely. See, as you know that now India has more than 300 startups in the space sector. And all these startups are deep tech startups. Now, what we need to bring, because this whole area is interdisciplinary. So, the startups in different areas, be it in materials, be it in biology, be it in technology of different types, sensors and so on, all are needed in this. And my own sense is that this is a very, very emerging area where India should know what we have to do in coming years.
Much appreciated your time. So that was Professor Ajay Sood, the Principal Scientific Advisor of the Government of India, stating that these kind of conferences will go a long way in taking India forward in the space sector. With camera person Piyush, this is Tapush Bhattacharya for GD India from Delhi.
India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said on Thursday that the global order will no longer be determined by the developed nations. She said this while lauding India's economic development under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi while addressing the Business Standards annual summit session called the Great Reset, India in a New World Order. She also said that trade and technology will play a crucial role in the New World Order and India will need to participate.
I think India, I'm glad to say under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, is conscious that India should be in a reckoning place as this churning is happening and the global reset is happening. And in that, we shall put India's interest first and on the top. The point is there are so many different considerations with which India can contribute towards this reset. And in that, I think we are conscious of first giving ourselves the first assumption that it will be India's interest first. And in saying that, what do I actually want to convey? We have to keep our strategic requirements top of the agenda. Your strategic requirements are also very much influenced by the geopolitical location in which you are positioned as a country.
The Advantage Assam 2.0 summit organized to boost investment for the state's economic and overall development successfully concluded on Wednesday. Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma announced that investment proposals worth approximately 4.5 lakh crore rupees were received during the summit.
We got proposals for nearly 6 to 7 lakhs crores of rupees, but we have done a closer scrutiny so that we sign only those MOUs which are actually convertible in next 3 to 4 years of time. So we have focused more on quality rather than quantity.
South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa addressed the G20 finance ministers and central bank governors meeting in Cape Town on Wednesday, emphasizing the need for enhanced global cooperation to address pressing economic challenges. The meeting held at the Cape Town International Convention Centre is the first under South Africa's G20 presidency. DD India's Nazneen Ismail reports.
The G20 finance ministers and central bank governors meeting is underway here at the mother city, Cape Town, where the President Cyril Ramaphosa gave his opening address to the delegation.
South Africa's G20 president is to mobilize finance for a just energy transition. Significantly more funding is required to limit global temperature rise in line with the goals of the Paris Agreement, and to do so in a manner that is equitable and just.
In true South African fashion, the President met with the ministers of the G20 countries, along with delegates from the invited nations.
The focus is on balanced, inclusive and sustainable growth. And at the heart of that framework for balanced, sustainable growth is macroeconomic stability. And macroeconomic stability is very straightforward. It's price stability and prudent fiscal policy.
The G20 meetings shall continue for the rest of the year as we get closer and closer to the summit. I'm Nazneen for DD India, Cape Town, South Africa.
On to some sporting news now. A toss is delayed in the Pakistan versus Bangladesh match at the Rawalpindi Cricket Stadium, with rain playing spoil sport once again. Host Pakistan are hoping to cap off a dismal Champions Trophy 2025 with a win as they take on Bangladesh in their final Group A game. Both sides have been knocked out of the semi-final race before this game and will be playing for pride. Pakistan have suffered a string of embarrassing defeats against New Zealand and arch rivals India, whilst Bangladesh have fared much better. Led by Mohammad Rizwan, the hosts will be striving for a consolation victory on home soil. International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach will step down as member of the Olympic body after handing over charge to his successor in June this year. The executive board has agreed to accept the resignation of Bach as an IOC member effective after June 23rd. Bach, an Olympic fencing champion in 1976, demits his post after 12 years. The new president will be elected on March 20th in Greece. There are 7 candidates in the fray. Bach was elected as the 9th president of the International Olympic Committee in 2013. He was re-elected for a 4-year term in 2021. The International Olympic Committee granted provisional recognition to world boxing, which is a major step towards the sport's inclusion in the 2028 Olympics. The boxing competition at the Paris Olympics was run by the IOC after it stripped the International Boxing Association of recognition in 2023 over its failure to implement reforms on governance and finance. The IOC has not included the sport in the upcoming Los Angeles Games yet, but has urged national boxing federations to create a new global boxing body. World Boxing was launched in 2023 and now has 78 members across 5 continents. The Olympic body said that world boxing had met several key criteria to merit provisional recognition. A retirement ceremony was held on a 90-passenger yacht to honor 8 high-nose women divers from Jeju Island, South Korea, who have worked in the ocean for over 60 years. The event, organized with community support, featured junior high-nose performing and collecting sea cucumbers and seaweed. With the Coast Guard ensuring safety, the ceremony highlighted their legacy as a UNESCO intangible cultural heritage. That's it in this edition of DD India News Hour. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates on India and the world on our DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. We'll be back with more news as it breaks air on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja. From all of us here in New Delhi, thank you for watching. Namaskar.